Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, as today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams off-season so far. As today we're going to be talking about the St. Louis Blues and honestly their very lackluster off-season, signing a not very good defenseman in Nick Leddy. They did do a good job on the Robert Thomas extension, but everything else was just kind of meh for the St. Louis Blues. But before we get into this, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. It'll be very much appreciated. And if you'd like to become a member of the channel and join the boys club, go down the link in the description below. You guys get early content, and not just that, some cool emotes for when I start back up on the streaming grind. But let's get into talking about the St. Louis Blues and their offseason that they have had. Now, of course, they, gave an extension to Robert Thomas, which I absolutely love the extension. I think that is every penny is worth Robert Thomas's extension here. He's an amazing player. I'm excited to see what they'll give Kairu as well. Hey there, guys. Sorry to cut my other self off. This is post-editing me here. Just wanted to let you guys know that Kairu actually just signed a contract extension with the St. Louis Blues, getting locked up on a 8-year deal worth $65 million, signed an $8.125 million per season. A very similar contract to the Robert Thomas contract, actually identical to Robert Thomas's contract, and will be ending at the same time. I love Jordan Kairu this past season. He was also one of my favorite Blues this entire season. He was a point-per-game player, just so offensively talented, just a really good player, and just another great signing here by the St. Louis Blues. So I'll hand it back off to myself as I'll review the rest of the St. Louis Blues offseason. Two amazing players. I absolutely loved Thomas and Kairu last year. I thought they were just absolutely amazing studs and really the future for the St. Louis Blues. So moving forward, let's get into the draft and talk about that first before we get into other things, because I have a lot to kind of talk about. There's a little bit of concern with their defense. I think there's a lot to be concerned about that, but let's get into their draft. Now, they did a pretty good job with their draft. They got some pretty good high picks with Jimmy Snuggerud, which was a pretty good pick. 63 points in 59 games. Great shot. Has some great offensive abilities. Doesn't play too bad defensively. I think is a really good pick. Kind of like a Jake Neighbors type of guy, another guy to add into the prospect system, especially for the goal scoring and the offense. You bring in another guy that could kind of bring that along. And they've been doing really good with their last few drafts. Zachary Bolduc, Jake Neighbors, and now you add Jimmy Snuggerud. You add some future guys that can play in your offensive core. I think next year, definitely, they need to focus a little bit more on their defense a little bit more, though. They don't really have any big high-class defensemen. And quite honestly, I'm really not a big fan of their defense core. Like Colton Parayko, I like. Torrey Krug's not bad offensively, but I don't know. We're going to be talking about Leddy here in a few moments. But then this Kasamaki was a Finn guy. He's a center playmaker. Doesn't play too bad defensively either, but he definitely is a really nice playmaking guy. He passes the puck really good. Played not too bad in the World Juniors and not too bad in the Olinka Gretzky Cup as well. And then Michael Buchager. Also did pretty good, 44 points in 63 games as well. Another good defenseman for the future there for the St. Louis Blues. But not a bad draft. It was okay. It was just in the middle of the pack for the picks that they did have, and they did do pretty good with the Jimmy guy there. And then their trades, they traded away Ville Husso for just one single third-round pick. Now, Ville Husso has a lot of big questions with him, and yeah, he did get paid the $4.75 million, and he just purely wasn't going to be getting paid that in St. Louis, and honestly, that was probably what you're going to get out of Ville Husso. Now, is this an L for a trade? Yeah, because next year you're going to be going with Jordan Binnington and Thomas Greiss, which we're going to be talking about Greiss here in a few moments. This goalie tandem, I just don't know if Blues fans can really be confident in it. Binnington was a hot fire mess last year, and just wasn't very good. Even the year before, he was a hot fire mess. Did very good in the playoffs, I do give him that, but he's been a hot mess the last few years. He's, showed that he's had some locker room problems. He looks like he gets pissed off very easily, and is the guy that can he, get back to that form that he was in his rookie season and brought the team to a Stanley Cup championship. So the big thing is Binnington really needs to have a bounce back season this upcoming season for the Blues to really actually contend. I think that they still will contend, but the biggest thing is their defense and their goaltending. How well will these two hold up? Because I think their offensive core will carry them a long way. It's just their goaltending is a big question mark, especially when you have teams like Colorado, Dallas. I mean, who knows? You got Minnesota, still a great team, Nashville. Like, you're competing with some other great teams in there, and I think you could. I mean, Pacific, there'll probably be the 5 teams that'll probably make it out of this division once again. So you'll probably have St. Louis make it in, but it could be really derailed if Binnington doesn't really step up big time this upcoming season. But moving forward, I think the Ville Husso deal was kind of an L. It's just, you're always going to take an L when you're training a goalie, especially in the likes of Ville Husso, who he carried the goaltending duo this past season for the St. Louis Blues. So now they're having to rely back on Jordan Binnington, and that is going to be a big question on if Binnington could be that big guy this year. So we'll move into the free agent signings now here for the Blues, and the very first one we'll talk about is Noel Achary. Nice depth guy, really has been not healthy the last few years. Offensively, he does pretty good. He has been able to finish his opportunities the last little bit. Not very great defensively. A decent depth guy there for the St. Louis Blues. Adds a little bit of extra depth there with Logan Brown and Nathan Walker. Not a bad move. Thomas Greiss, I'm really not a big fan of this one. As your backup, you are probably going to get maybe 20 games out of him. And if Jordan Binnington is not going to be reliable this year, you cannot rely on Thomas Greiss taking a good bulk of those games either. Yeah, maybe he might see a little bit better numbers from Thomas Greiss, but even then, I don't believe so. I think Greiss might get maybe an 895, 900 save percentage, maybe if that. I don't know. Like, honestly, I just don't think Thomas Greiss is the type of backup that you wanted to back up Jordan Binnington this upcoming season, especially with how Binnington has just not been so amazing for the St. Louis Blues. So I think their goaltending duo is very, very questionable. And then the most, I think kind of one of the dumbest deals that the St. Louis Blues did is picking up Nick Leddy, or no, not picking him up, re-signing him to a 4-year deal worth $4 million per year on a no-trade clause as well. I just don't like this move. I'm not a big fan of Nick Leddy. He is just piss poor 5-on-5. He's just a mediocre defenseman that just gets way too much minutes, to be quite honest with you. He's not very good. He's okay offensively, but he's just not a guy that, like, you need to add it into your core. You already have a guy like Torrey Krug and Justin Falk who produce a good amount of points. So what's the point with picking up Leddy? Like, you don't need him. You have your top 4. You even got Mikkola, which played pretty good in that top 6 spot. So why re-sign Leddy? It makes no sense, especially when this team is so tight up against the cap and you lock up a guy like Nick Leddy for the next 4 years. It makes no utter sense. It's a stupid, moronic deal, and I'm not a big fan of it. Nick Leddy's not a good defenseman. This was not a good move by the St. Louis Blues, and you just didn't need Nick Leddy. Like, pure and simple, you did not need Nick Leddy. You really didn't. You could improve yourself better offensively, or maybe pick up a good defensive defenseman to be added to that top 6 core if you wanted to improve yourself defensively, not Nick Leddy. Moving forward, Robert Thomas, amazing move, 8 years, worth a $65 million deal, which comes to 8.125 AAV. It comes with a little bit of a no-trade clause. Robert Thomas was absolutely amazing this past season, a point per game, did pretty well in the playoffs. I think Robert Thomas is just going to be a point per game player every single year who brings a pretty good defensive game alongside of a killer offensive game. I think Robert Thomas is just a great piece to the team, and with this team being so deep and him being, a big center coming up the middle there, he's just the type of guy that you love to have, and it was a great draft pick being drafted at 20th overall. I think Robert Thomas, he's been one of my favorite players, watching him kind of grow throughout the rankings. Robert Thomas has been amazing, and I'm excited to see if that contract will really be worth it, and I think without a doubt it will. I think it'll even be maybe even above, probably Robert Thomas is even worth more than this, quite honestly, especially since he's 23 and he's already produced a year where he produced a point per game per season. I think this is an amazing value of a contract for Robert Thomas, especially locking him up for 8 years. Amazing value here for the St. Louis Blues, a major dub with this one here. Otherwise, not very many other depth, just a lot of depth moves with Josh Levo, Nathan Walker, Martin Frick, Nico Mikkola. This was another weird move. They signed him to a $1.9 million deal unless he plays on the right side. That's why it makes no sense to sign up Nick Leddy. Like, it made no sense to me to sign up Nick Leddy, and this is like one of the biggest, poorest moves that I've seen this year. Like, all the other moves I thought were pretty good. The Ville Husso move is definitely an L, but otherwise, like, they did a really good job. Like, Robert Thomas was a great move. I mean, yeah, that was probably the only other great move. Noel Achary, Robert Thomas, and their draft was all right. You had L's with Nick Leddy, L with Thomas Grace, and the L with the Ville Husso move. Quite honestly, I think I'm going to place this team in a C+. They're still, like, I'm not a big fan of their defensive core step into this year. Parayko has, you know, been injury-riddled over the past few years. He was actually able to get a full season this year, which was huge. So if you could get another healthy season out of Parayko, you could definitely see him come back to top form. Marco Scandella, he's been struggling over the past few years. I think they still needed to improve themselves defensively, and they didn't do that with the re-signing of Nick Leddy. He was not good at all in the St. Louis Blue uniform, and yeah, he's just not good. You don't want him back there. So I'm going to give this team a C+. I love the Thomas move. The draft was good, but everything else was just not great moves by Armstrong. But yeah, that's really about it, guys. Tell me, guys, in the comment section below what you guys thought of the St. Louis Blues offseason. I'm going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.